Welcome to the second season of the Millennial Mrs. Podcast. I am your host, Trinae Watson, and many know that I created the Millennial Mrs. Podcast to create a platform for amazing women to show how they have overcome many obstacles, how they are killing the game just by being uniquely them. It is always my goal to not only empower, inspire, and enlighten other women, but it is also my goal to be inspired by and empowered by other women. So I am super excited today to have Miss Danisha Brown as my co-host today. On the Millennial Mrs. Podcast. So let's give her a warm welcome. Hey, Danisha.
Hey, Trinae. Thanks for
How are
having me.
you, girl?
I am surviving and thriving.
Surviving and thriving. I'll take it. I'll take it, baby. So I have known Danisha for a very, very, very long time, decades in the game. And so it has been a pleasure and an honor to see you evolve from a little girl to a woman and doing all the amazing things. So for those that do not know who you are, can you please give us a synopsis of who Danisha Brown is?
All right. So I am a full-time entrepreneur.
Full
I,
time. Let's let's
full-time.
let's 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 do two snaps for the full time.
Right, because it ain't easy. So
It ain't
full-time
easy.
entrepreneur. I am the CEO and founder of Risk Exchange Agency, and I am known as a wealth shield advisor. So I help people protect their assets and build wealth, all while educating them because it's something that we don't know, right? It's just the education piece.
And that is major in our community because we don't talk about that. Most of us go to like a Geico or USAA, and we kind of just do what we do for what the normal is. But the fact that you stepped out there, decided you wanted to do your own, like you didn't want to work for your own another company. Tell me about that process and what that looked like transitioning from like a traditional job.
Okay. I believe that I am in this place because God put me here.
You
And
better
like
speak on it.
I don't think everyone really and it's interesting because people really don't know the story. Um, so when I first started off, as I've been licensed for 9 years, I started off with working at a company, and then I transitioned working for an independent brokerage. And at that time, I was just, a sub producer, just doing my own thing while still working a W-2 job. And I was networking, building relationships. And actually, a person called me that I haven't talked to in like 6, 8 months, randomly calls me up and says, Danisha, I had a dream about you. And I was just like, why are you having dreams about me? I haven't talked to you in a while. And he was like, I don't know, but I'm a spiritual person and I feel like I'm supposed to tell you about the event this evening. And he was a realtor that also owned Exit Realty. And so he was like, they were having a cocktail hour and I need to come. And I was like, okay, like that's in 3 hours. Like you just letting me know. So let me go ahead and get myself together. So I listened and I received the assignment and I showed up. And so when I showed up, I worked the room like I normally do, just networking and building relationships. And I met my business partner today, and he said, Danisha, what do you think about starting your own agency? And at the time, I was 29 years old. And I was just like, okay, like I'm open to the conversation. Like, all right. In my mind at a 29, I'm like, I'm probably open up my own agency at like 35, 36, a couple more years. But he planted the seed. I wasn't even thinking nothing of it. And so fast forward, we end up having lunch and it just once the seed was planted, I couldn't shake it, honestly. It was just like, okay, well, you done made this a possibility. Now I need to make it happen. And so that transition was interesting because, we met because somebody had a dream about me. And so fast forward, he is my business partner now, and we are in year 3 of our business. And honestly, he's one of the best business partners I ever had. And that's nothing but God on how that connection happened. And, this whole transition, even from where I started to now, was a stretch. I'll be honest. Like, it ain't always bells and whistles. I had to learn some things about myself. I had to shift some thinking, right? So it's different being a salesperson than a agency owner. And so by him already owning multiple businesses, he helped me with that shifting thinking pretty much of like, hey, you got to think like an owner, not a salesperson. And so we had some hiccups, just like any other business, right? We started over 3 times, honestly. And so now we are in a good spot where we are thriving in the
I
business.
love to hear that, especially. So, you had a couple pointers that I want to highlight because the entrepreneur side of me is definitely like highlighting, like, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. So, number one, I really like hearing you saying being in the right place and somebody having a dream about you. Oftentimes, things happen and we're not ready. But it
Mhm.
sounds like you were prepared to get there. And when you got there, you were able to show up and show out. And so sometimes we just have to get in position, even when we
Mm,
don't know, and even when it doesn't make sense. And it's like, this is not necessarily what I was doing, but sometimes we just got to trust God and go with it, right? So I love to hear that. So I wanted to pull that out. But then I also love the shift because sometimes when we do things, it doesn't always work the first time. And it doesn't
mhm.
mean that God is not in it. It doesn't mean that we can't keep doing it. It just means we got to persevere. So I love to hear your persevering and going from that. So, thinking of that, I want to talk about your foundation. What is your background with like church and everything? I hear you talking about God, so I know it, but tell the folks, what is your background when it comes down to church and your belief and faith and everything?
Sure. I am a PK all the way. Yes. My mother raised me in the church. She was a pastor for 10 years. I was under her wing, going to different churches. I even had an opportunity to preach one time. That was fun. I preached one time for the youth. I've also I have a passion for miming. So I like to just minister through mime, and I haven't done that in years, but I did that for a while growing up. And so I am very much a religious person and spiritual person at the same time, because that foundation is there. My mom has always told me, pray about it. Go into your prayer closet. Did you talk to God about it? Did you did you read the scripture, right? Did you go
What
to
is
church?
what it say? What did the scripture say? Break it down.
Right. What did the scripture say? Exactly. Did you go to church? My mother always is very adamant about making sure that God is every step of the way. And the thing is, when you're young, you really don't think about it until it really you become older.
Mm-hmm.
Even in my 20s, I don't even feel like I am as connected to God now than I was in my 20s. In my 20s, I was still obviously a believer and going to church, but now, now that I'm 30 and over, it's just a different type of a connection that I got with God. And then also because he done helped me down so many
You better
times,
you better say so.
I just be like, okay, God, you got it. You got that. I'm gonna follow you. That's it. Because that's where we at now. Because
That's where we at. It's a deeper level of trust.
Yes, it's a deeper level of trust. It's a deeper level of faith, because I have literally seen things unfold in a way that I had no control over, but it ended up working out for my good. And that's
Mm-hmm.
nothing but God, because a lot of times we so focused on how it's going to happen and not understanding that that's not our job. We just need
It's
to
not
know it's
all
going
we
to
need
happen.
to trust is that it's gonna happen.
Exactly. And so honestly, being an entrepreneur has brought me closer to God.
Mhm. You have to. I think when you are an entrepreneur, you are out in uncharted waters, especially when you are like a first generation entrepreneur. Like my mom has now started a business, but like I'm an adult. So it's kind of like we're both in an entrepreneurship journey together versus me being a kid and seeing her
Mhm.
weather the storms. And so like my children will see something different because they have been able to see me in the process. But when you are in the process of something that you have never seen before, it's definitely, that's what they call faith. That's what the grandmama and them was talking about when they said faith, baby. Like we can't see because it don't make
Of a
sense.
mustard seed. Faith of a mustard seed. That's all, just that much.
Just that much, yes. And I want to give your mom a shout out. I remember I was after I had my youngest Avid, I was in the hospital after having seizures, and they had given me medicine, and I couldn't move, couldn't talk, couldn't do anything. And I remember opening my eyes, and she was in that hospital with that oil. And a lot of
Mm.
people will say that they're gonna pray for you, but not a lot of people make actual hospital calls with oil in hand. And so I will always be grateful for the oil in hand that showed up in the hospital, and prayed. Didn't stay
Mhm.
long, didn't do all the extra, didn't need to be seen, didn't need to make a Facebook post or social media post, but showed up and prayed with the oil. And so that is good stock of where you come from. And so I am just wanted to give that shout out to there. But yeah, so tell me, and let's go back to this faith journey in your business. And you being, how old are you now?
32.
So you being 32,
Mhm.
and that shift of what that faith looked like as a kid and what you knew growing up to how that is now and how it correlates in your life as an adult.
Okay. So as a kid, I don't know what I don't honestly, I don't think that like I thought about it to tell you the truth. It just wasn't, when you're a child, you're just doing what your parents told you to do, right? I prayed, yes, but I don't think I knew what I was praying to tell you the truth, or even how to pray. I think that when you're young and you're around a lot of church, sometimes you're mimicking what you see, but you don't fully understand what you're mimicking. I don't think that it really hit me until honestly I got out the house, right? Until I started really being in the world myself. And once I started being in the world, and I was just like, okay, now I see how you just need to pray about things. And from my journey as a child to now, and learning what I've learned now, my prayer is different. My conversation with God is different. My expectations is different. I don't have a limit on what God can do in my life. Maybe 10 years ago, I might have been like, God, can but this time I'm like, God, take the wheel. Show me what you can do. Let God my footsteps. And I'm talking different to myself too. And that's a part of the thing that I feel like people missed as well. You could talk to God, but you also got to talk to yourself differently and speak words and life into yourself. And even God says it, your tongue is powerful. Your words are powerful. He has given that to us. So not only can we talk to him at his level of understanding, but also we can speak life into our own life, right?
And our
So like
situations.
in our situations, right? So one of the things that like I tell myself, especially when I'm stressing and I'm trying to figure out what this business is about to look like, my slogan this year is I expect it to work out. And that takes away so much load, right? To just say, I expect it to work out. I may not know how, when, or what it's going to look like, but I expect it. And the reason why I can say that is because I put the work and the faith in.
That's right. I think both of those are crucial. You need to put in the faith and the work. You can't believe and not be willing to do the work, and we can't do the work and not believe that it's going to happen. What I always say, I'm on a mission this year. Well, number one, we're on a mission. Shout out to Tiffany. We are on a mission in 2025, and it is highlighted in every area of our lives. But what I've been saying more than ever is less of me, more of him.
Mhm.
and I am trying to operate in such in every area of my life. And a lot of that comes with operating in faith, despite what everything around me look like. And you touched a good point about when we were younger in church. So being a PK, because I was too, we was in church all the time.
Yes.
It was never a time that we was not in church. We went to church probably what 4 or 5 times a week.
I was
And
great. Yep. 5 days a week. We was in church.
yes, it was what you doing church. I meet you at
Mhm.
church. I see you at church. I met my husband at church. Like everything is at church. We was at church. We was in a church house. And now like things society has shifted so much that we are not in church as much. And I think that there are pros and cons of that. I when I became an adult, I was so much like, oh my God, I've been in church so much, I need a break. Like, I still love the Lord, I still love Jesus, but I can't do 5 and 6 days in church. It just don't take all of that. And
Mhm.
so I was a member of church before it became popular. Before COVID was a thing, I loved watching church online. And so then when COVID came, it became like a popular thing to do. But I don't know about you, but I have been now in a season of thirsting more than ever to be in his presence and to be in the house of the Lord. And I don't know if I'm old. Like I feel like now I'm getting old. Like what is going on? Like I love to watch it online, but every now and then I am hungry to
Mhm.
be in his presence inside
Mhm.
the house of the Lord. Is
Mhm.
that something you going through over there?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, you right on it. Yes, literally, that is one of my things this year. I went to church this past Sunday. It was a great church, but I have been craving just the energy in the room. Like, yes, online church is beautiful. I was right there with you. And going back to what you said regarding you was churched out, I was probably churched out too in my younger adult life. I didn't really care to go to church. I was in church all day, every day, sun up to sundown, every holiday, every New Year's, every
You
time.
you came into the new year in church,
Yes,
not
came
in the
into
club.
not at the club. Every year
Christmas
I was at
Christmas
church.
morning, you was in church before you was opening gifts and being excited about Christmas. Jesus
Yeah,
is the reason for the season. He
yes,
was in
yes,
church.
church, churched out. So yes, in my 20s, I did not care to go to church. But I was still wanted to be connected. See, that's the thing about it, right? You still want to be connected.
Mm-hmm.
You just didn't want to be in church. Now, I right now, and it's so interesting you brought that up because that is really one of my to-do things this year is to go to church more because I am craving the energy of the spirit. It's just
Mm-hmm.
nothing like being in church. It's just a different energy when people are together. When the praise and worship is going off. It's just nothing like being in church. No matter how good the part, not how good the online is, no matter how good the sermon is, it's just not the same if you were actually there.
I
It's really,
agree. It is not the same. I think it is we are living in the times that our parents once prayed for, laying the foundation of like us being in church from the early ages and getting some of the fundamentals so that we as adults, it has sustained us, but now we are heading back to church where our foundation was first laid. So that's
Mhm.
definitely good. So tell me what it is like. Are you married? You single? What's happening in your dating life? Like what's happening?
So what's happening?
Well,
God has a way of just putting people in the right time in your life. When I first started my entrepreneurship journey, I honestly did not have the capacity to date or be with anyone when I first started. I had to go all in. And sometimes people don't fully understand that. Going all in means that I'm giving it everything I got for this to work out. And sometimes in that beginning stage, I may not be able to do certain things. So the thing is, when you're always focused on one thing, you're sacrificing something else. So at that time, I sacrificed my dating life. But recently, I was like, okay, God, I'm ready. I talked to God about it, talked to my therapist about it too. And I said,
Pause. We talk to the God and we talk to the therapist.
therapist.
Baby, that is a word. That is a word. Oftentimes we talking to God and or we talking to the therapist and not talking to God. And baby, it is a duo. They go
Yes.
together. If you have
Mm-hmm.
not gotten you a therapist, get you one
One.
today.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love my therapist. Shout out to her. So I talked to my God and my therapist, and I felt ready. Like I can't explain it. Like I was like, okay, I feel ready to start dating. And soon as I opened up that door of feeling ready to start dating after praying about it and everything, I am now with this guy who is a beautiful soul. And yeah, him and I have been dating for some time now, and I'm liking where we at.
Oh, well, I guess that's an exclusive because I didn't know that outside the Millennial Mrs. podcast. Wait a minute. We'll have to talk offline about this, but okay. I love to hear it.
Mhm.
So, okay, so we have our own business. We have some good Christian foundation. Now we have a man. And one of the other things that I want to highlight, because this is not something that everyone does, but you purchased your own house
Yes.
on your own. How old were you when you purchased your first home?
I was 22 years old when I purchased my house by myself.
22 years old. And I do not take that lightly. I think that that is one of the most amazing things that you can do, as not just a woman, but just period. To do it, we got to teach our kids more and more, younger and younger, to buy real estate and to have something that is yours that cannot just be taken. And so that is major. And when we're talking about being all wearing all the hats and doing all of the things, that is one of the things. Like, you were able to navigate that process and keep going and all of that. So I want to rewind a little bit. So we got the house. Tell me about your transition from working to full-time entrepreneurship. What were some of your fears? How did you prepare? What are some of the things that you would probably do different?
So working when I had a W-2 job and entrepreneurship, one of the biggest things that I did was honestly change my environment. That was the biggest shift. Um, Working at a W-2, it was a great experience. I've learned a lot, even under and as an insurance agent. I've learned a lot, like that's where I've started working at the age of 19, 20 years old. So I have that, working a job, and I've worked multiple jobs. Um, and honestly, what really made me even be more of an entrepreneur is I got fired. I'm be honest. Years ago, I got
What
fired
we
from
do
a
is honesty around here. I love it. So you were
yeah.
fired. Okay.
I was fired, not the last job, but the job before last. I was actually fired. And at that time, it was devastating because I have never been fired before and I worked very hard. But now when I look back on it, I'm like, thank you, God, for setting that up. But at the time, when you're in the thick of it, it's like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? What's going to happen? I still have the house. I am the only person, sole provider of my own home, So I'm like, okay, how are these bills about to get paid? And so fast forward, I was just trying to figure out some things in life of like, okay, what's going to work for me? And so I dabbled in some other things like Forex, and I ended up working back at a nonprofit. And even when I was at that nonprofit, although I love to help people, um, it just still wasn't just in my spirit long term to stay at all. Even when I started the job, I knew that this was just a job and I knew that I was going to go somewhere else. But honestly, I did not know what it was. I didn't know what that next step was. I just knew in my spirit it was something else, right? And so I end up working at the nonprofit. And while I was working there, that's when I picked up the insurance again. And so I was doing insurance part-time and working at the nonprofit because I always hustle, you know? And so I was doing both at the same time. And then like I told you earlier, when the opportunity came for me to actually start the agency, 6 months later, when I actually, not even 6 months, 4 months later, when I actually started the agency, I realized I can't do both. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't. I couldn't work this job and still be an entrepreneur. I had to make a decision. I had to decide, okay, Danisha, you going to hold on to this job so you can get your check every 2 weeks? Or are you going to go ahead and just believe in yourself, bank on yourself, and let God lead the way? And yes, it may be uncharted territory. However, it felt right to
Mm-hmm.
do for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that is the route that I obviously took. And the thing is, God gives you options along the way. So before I even started the agency, I needed to make sure that this is what I wanted to do. So I actually started applying for jobs. Started applying for jobs. I actually had an opportunity to get a six-figure job. And I had an opportunity, everything was cleared off, debt was eliminated, house refinance. I was in a beautiful spot to just take this job and then continue to grow. And then it was either take this job or start your business. And God gave me that option. And at that time, I prayed about it and I was just like, I don't want to get fired again. I want to take control over my own life. I want to be able to employ other people. I don't want to be in that situation again where someone says, Danisha, I think that you're not enough, so I'm letting you go. And so the best
Mm,
thing that I can do is start my own thing. And
mm,
so that fear of like, I don't want to be in that situation again where someone is telling me what my paycheck looks like, when I gotta go to work, or when if they want to keep me on board, because let's be honest, people are getting fired left and right, especially right now with the government, but that's a whole nother thing. But
say
I
so.
I did not want that type of, I just didn't. I already experienced it. And like I said, that whole being fired it was an experience for me. And obviously it stuck with me to the point where I said I wanted my own. And so one of the things that I did when I transitioned into being that full time, when I left my job, I needed to change my environment because, like you said, I never seen it before. I don't know what it looks like. In my industry, it is predominantly males. Honestly, white males, to tell you the truth, predominantly in my industry. It is rare that you see a black female insurance agency owner. Very rare. And so I did not know really what that looked like. And so I end up going to connecting with my mentor. And I drove out National Harbor every week for a whole year and a half so I can learn just more about the mental shift of being an owner. I can learn more about my products. I was in an environment where I was in connected with other business owners. So that way I can just learn, honestly, learn by asking, learn by observing, learn by just being in the room. And honestly, when you're in the room, if you haven't noticed by now, that's when God starts doing things for you. It's by just showing up and being in the room. Matter of fact, I pulled up my own chair to the table.
And guess what? I love that because oftentimes people get mad and say, you didn't create a seat at the table for me. I have this shirt that says like I am the table, and I don't say that in a cocky way. I say it in a way of I know the calling that is on my life, and I know that the calling is not for me to get mad if it's not a seat at another table because God has called me to be a creator of tables and to have tables where women can sit and
Mhm.
to feel welcomed and things like that. So I love that. I love that. Yes. You
Mhm.
have created your own seat at the table. So when you are thinking about when you thought about that, tell me what it was like far as your support system. A lot of times a lack of a support system can, or the opposite of having a support system can either make or break your business, especially your spirit in entrepreneurship, having that encouragement or lack thereof. Tell me about your support system throughout this process and how has that helped or hurt your process?
I'm blessed, honestly. My family have been very supportive from the very beginning. They have been, sending me business. I have they're on my book of business. They have been very supportive from the jump, as well as my friends. And the thing is, everybody supports in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think that sometimes people so focus on, oh, you didn't get nothing from me. No, I'm okay if you just say my name in the room. That's support. And so I have received so much support from my family in different ways. And then as my entrepreneurship grew and my journey grew, I now have a business village. That's what I like to call. I have different villages. That's what in my mind, I have different villages. I have my friends' village, and they pour into me a whole nother way, right? I have my family village. They pour into me a different way. And then I have my business village and they pour into me a different way. And I go to them for different things too. But having that support system is important. And it was important for me, especially since I was a single person. I didn't have someone at home in my ear saying, you got this, Danisha, or whatever. No, I came home by myself. I woke up by myself figuring this out. And so when I had those moments of doubt, or those moments of unclarity and uncertainty, I needed to tap into my village. I needed to reach out to certain people to give me encouragement. And then the thing about it, God just knows where you are because even when I would have my certain moments, random people would just come up to me and give me encouragement. Random people will send me text messages. And I just be like, thank you, Jesus, because that lets me know that you see me. And so having the different support system in place was such a benefit for me. And then even as I carry that on into my dating life, I know that I need that too. I need a person that's going to support me in my business and in my mental health as well, because it is all connected. And so having a village, some kind of village, is important. Now, all that to say, understand that they may not understand. It's my business. They don't know the day-to-days. They don't know what it is that I have to go through to show up a certain way. And so even when I was going through a stage where, I might be looking for certain advice or whatever, it came to a point where if I'm looking for certain advice, my family probably wasn't going to be the ones to give it to me because they've already helped me to where they can help me. They've never been in this territory before. So the advice that they can give is very limited because you don't have that experience or even in the environment to do so. And so it became to a point where, okay, I needed my business village for certain things because now they have that experience of okay, if I have a deal that gone wrong, how does that look? How can I overcome that? If I'm trying to come up with a partnership, what does that look like? What does that make sense on my end? And that's where my business village will tap in. And even with that, at the end of the day, my journey is me and God. So this is my counsel, but I'm not listening to them. I'm taking it in. I'm taking bits and pieces. But my end of the decision is between me and God. And so at the end of it, once I heard from the council, because God had his 12 disciples and he had his council, right?
Say
So
so. Say so.
when I heard my counsel, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, God, but what did you say? Okay, God, but
Right.
what does this make sense for you, Jesus? Okay, but pour into me. Let me see the clarity. Let me have your eyesight because this is my journey and my path. And I know that they don't know the promise that God has for me. I know the
Mm-hmm.
promise God has for me. And so I have to move according to that. And it may not always understand. They may not always understand. Prime example, like I said, I went out National Harbor for a whole year and a half and it took me at least 3 to 4 hours out of my day to go out there. I would drive out there, come home 10 o'clock at night, and my family did not like it. They didn't like it. Danisha, why do you gotta have an office out National Harbor? Danisha, why do you have to have an office so far away? You know, it's other options here. You can do downtown Baltimore. But I had to tell them it's not about the office. It really wasn't about the
It's
office.
not about the office, but it's also not your journey.
It's not
So,
your job.
what works for you or what you might be willing to do might not be what I'm going to do. And for what God has for me, it may require me to do some things that is not comfortable. I
Mhm,
always talk about being willing to get uncomfortable to get
mhm,
us in a place of comfortability. Because when you are so comfortable in going to Baltimore, which is up the street, or doing the things that are close and near and familiar to you, you can oftentimes miss God.
mhm,
But it is when he is in those unfamiliar places that he will show up and show out.
mhm,
He is pushing us and he is expanding us. And as we are evolving and as we are growing, there's going to be some times where it doesn't make sense to other people, and that is okay. Your
mhm.
journey is not supposed to make sense to other people. I go through this with my mother because in a lot of ways, so she is an entrepreneur. Everybody know, shout out to Life Matters Wellness Center. But more than anything, she seeks God. And so when God tells her something, she is like on point with, I'm going to operate with God. And so I am a little bit more practical of, okay, send me the contract, let me review the contract, let me see if the numbers make sense and all of the things. But one of the things that I always tell her when I give my assessment is, listen, this is my assessment based off of what I think, based off of this documentation. If God is telling you something else, you go with what God is telling you, but I'm telling you what I think based off of this. So sometimes you gotta separate the person's expertise away from God and God's
Mhm,
expertise and your
mhm,
expertise in God's voice, because
mhm.
they are different. They are different. People give you advice out of their experience and
Ah,
what has worked for them. And what I like to believe is that nobody is going to give you advice to fail. So they are giving
mm,
you advice for you to succeed based off of their know-withal. But sometimes their
mhm.
know-withal is limited because they're within the parameters of what God has done in their life.
Exactly.
And what you said in the beginning of this is like, you took the limits off of what God is doing in your life. And because you have done that, you can't be limited by what people around you are saying or what they're thinking.
Mhm,
I like that.
mhm,
That's
mhm.
that's that's definitely good. So I want to go back. I want to go back. I want to go back. Tell me, when you were a kid, what life did you envision? Like, what did you expect at this age? Who did you expect to be? Did you expect some kids? What was going on?
Um, Career-wise, I had no clue, honestly. I This is not an industry where you say, "Oh, I want to be an insurance agent when I grow up." Like that, it's not a sexy industry. Like it's really not. Um, this is something that I fell into, obviously, in within my adult life. But as a child, I grew up in the arts. Like I went to Baltimore School for the Arts. I was in the arts for 10 years. And ironically, even though I was in the arts for 10 years as a child, I knew that I wasn't going to do the arts as an adult. I have a passion for it. I will always love it. And I even want to get back into it on a voluntary basis. But I knew financially I didn't want to go through that, honestly, as an artist. And it just wasn't that kind of a passion of mine. So I really did not know what I wanted to do. I went to school, I did go to college for a little bit. I realized that that's not for me either. I went to a few colleges and realized that, yeah, this school isn't my thing. Eventually, I'll go back maybe one day, but I know that school is really not my thing. Um, so I would have never imagined that my life looked the way that it looks now. Yes, a part of me at one point did believe that I would be married and have kids by now. But that was the old version of me. Now I'm like, I'm loving who I am and where I am. But when you were young, when I was younger in my 20s, I didn't know I was going to be 32 and not married. But that's where God has me. And that's okay, honestly, because I think that that's where I'm supposed to be. This was a setup. So I never really had like an expiring dream. I just knew the life that I wanted, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. I knew that I didn't want to worry about finances. I knew that I wanted financial freedom. I just didn't know how or when or what it was going to look like or what passion was going to bring it out of me. But I just knew that I wanted to continue to explore the world. I knew that I wanted to be able to have an abundant life. Those are the things that I knew that I wanted to have in my life. And that's honestly still what I want today. And now that I'm older and definitely more focused, I can see it.
Okay. Okay. And do you still desire to be married and to have children?
Yes, yes. I do want to get married and have children, with the right person, you know. So yeah, I want to be, I look at you, Trinae, you married, you got your kids. Look, I want to be the do it all. I don't want no limits. I can have it all. I can have the husband, the kids, the business, the money, all of it. Why
Listen, and it is a cost for all of those things. That has birthed this Millennial Mrs. podcast because it looks easy. It looks all the things, but they are not, it's not always that easy. And I'm not saying that to be discouraging at all. I really believe that we can have it all.
not?
It's nothing in me. I do not believe that God would give us these options to not make it so that we can have it all. I
Hmm.
absolutely believe that you could be an amazing business owner, an amazing wife, an amazing mom, thrive in your personal life, because if you can't show up for you, you clearly cannot show up for all of those other roles. And so I do think that you can do all of those things, but that is why I think that platforms like these give it so much encouragement, because we need to know not just that we can do it, but how. When we feel like we are tired, how. When we feel like our backs are against the wall and we are backed into a corner, how do we continue to go on when it seems like everything around us is saying this is going to fail? And
Hmm.
so, what I think we have taken from today's podcast is that you are leaning on God in those moments. And in those moments when you're feeling like everything is about to fall, we're leaning on God more than ever. So that's where we
Hmm.
need to be. That's where we need to be. So tell me, if you could go back to 18-year-old Danisha,
Mm.
what would you tell 18-year-old Danisha?
18-year-old Danisha. Um, Tell her be her. I feel like I really didn't blossom into who I am until my late 20s, early 30s. Um, and when you learn to be yourself and accept yourself, I feel like it opens up different doors. You move differently, you show up differently, you can be your authentic self. And so I tell her to be her. Don't worry about everybody else, what they thinking, what they think your life should look like. Just don't worry about it. Just be yourself and stay connected to God. I don't regret anything in my life. Like it's nothing that I want to be like, oh, I wish this would happen. Oh, I wish this would have happened. I don't have that because everything needed to happen the way that it did for me to even be here with you. So I don't have those regrets. I would just tell her be herself.
Be herself. I love that. In a world where everybody is trying to keep up with everybody else, I love to be you. I oftentimes tell my children every day, you are not in competition with anybody but yourself, and you're in competition with yourself from yesterday. So the goal today is to be better than you were yesterday. There is nobody better than you, because nobody can be
Mm-hmm.
you the way you were created to be you.
Yeah.
So I
And
love
God
that.
gives you a gift. God gives you a gift at the end of the day. Mm-hmm.
And that's not a gift that he's given to anybody else.
Right. Right.
And that just now made me think of something else. If God gave you a gift, why you be asking other people what you should do with that gift versus asking God? Because the other people ain't give you that gift. So do they really know what to do with the gift that God gave you?
Mm,
Maybe
mm,
not. Maybe, child.
mm,
Maybe I'm
mm.
gonna mind my business.
Right.
I love to say I'm gonna mind my business and don't mind my business, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Be
So,
you.
how can people find you? How can they connect with you? All the things.
Absolutely. So, as I said before, I am a wealth shield advisor. So I help people protect their assets and build wealth. And a part of that is educating them when it comes to auto, home, commercial, and even using life insurance as a financial tool, far as tax advantages, retirement planning. And so you can connect with me on social media at Missdanisha. That's Missdanisha. You can also call or text me. I'll take a good text message, 240-673-3865. And I look forward to connecting with you because if you do not have anything in your financial portfolio now that is tax free or tax advantage, especially with a lot going on in the world right now, then we need to talk.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I definitely thank you, Danisha, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the Millennial Mrs. podcast. It is my goal and my pleasure and my honor to have you here to showcase all of the amazing things that you have going on. I look forward to seeing you continue to blossom and to continue to see your business grow to new heights and connect with more people and all of the things. So, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for tuning in to this episode of the Millennial Mrs. Podcast. Please connect with Danisha. She can check your policies out, even if you have current policies, to ensure that you are getting the best rate possible. And the thing that I love about Danisha is that if she can't beat your rate, she'll tell you, hey, you've got a great rate. Keep what you got going on. Keep me in mind if you ever need something in the future and all the things. Is one thing when you deal with salespeople that'll try to like discredit what you have and make it seem like it's not good. She's honest, and honesty in the world today is not something that we have so often. So we're going to go with the honest, and I want to support her. So please, her information is definitely in the bottom of this. Connect with her. And thank you for tuning into the Millennial Mrs. Podcast. I cannot wait to see you on the next episode of the Millennial Mrs. Podcast with your host, me, Trinae Watson.
Thank you, Trinae.
Thank you.